The Zephyrian research vessel. Gentle current drifted silently through the void, its crystalline hull reflecting the distant stars like a prism. Commander Lithara pressed her six-fingered hand against the cool surface of the observation deck, watching the cosmic dust swirl in patterns that reminded her of the sacred dances back on Zephyr Prime. Her people were explorers by nature, peaceful beings who had spent millennia cataloging the wonders of the galaxy without ever encountering another sentient species. That was about to change in the most terrifying way possible. "Commander," Chief Science Officer Vex Hun called from his station, his melodic voice carrying an unusual note of concern. "I'm detecting an anomaly in the quantum field readings. Something massive is approaching our position." Lithara glided across the bridge with the fluid grace typical of her species, her translucent skin shifting from pale blue to worried amber. The Zephyrians had evolved on a world of gentle breezes and floating islands, where harsh movements were not just unnecessary, but dangerous to their delicate bone structure. Everything about their ship reflected this philosophy: soft curves instead of sharp angles, materials that bent rather than broke, and systems designed to work in harmony rather than domination. "Show me," she requested, settling into her command pod like a flower finding its place in a garden. The holographic display materialized before them, showing a sector of space that should have been empty. Instead, something enormous was tearing through reality itself, leaving ripples in space-time that their sensitive instruments could barely comprehend. The readings made no sense according to Zephyrian understanding of physics. Whatever was coming was not just big. It was impossibly, devastatingly massive. "By the floating ancestors," whispered Navigator Quintel from her position at the stellar cartography console, "that signature suggests a vessel at least 50 times larger than our entire research fleet combined." The bridge fell silent, except for the gentle humming of their bio-integrated systems. The Zephyrians had always known that other species might exist somewhere in the vast galaxy, but their mathematical models suggested that any civilization capable of faster-than-light travel would likely be peaceful like themselves. After all, aggressive species would surely destroy themselves before achieving interstellar capabilities. They were about to discover how wrong that assumption could be. "Commander," Vex Hun's voice trembled with a mixture of excitement and fear, "I'm receiving a transmission. It's not directed at us. It appears to be some kind of internal communication, but our systems are interpreting it as a distress signal." "Can you decode it?" "Partially. The language is completely alien, but the mathematical structures underlying their communication suggest—" "Wait." His skin flickered from blue to deep purple, the Zephyrian equivalent of turning pale. "Commander, according to this transmission, they're experiencing what they call cascade system failures. Their weapons arrays are offline." "Weapons?" Lithara had never heard the word used in a military context. To the Zephyrians, weapons were tools for hunting the small aerial creatures they occasionally consumed, or for shaping crystal formations in their cities. "What manner of research requires weapons?" Before anyone could answer, the space in front of them tore open like fabric being ripped apart. What emerged defied every principle of elegant design the Zephyrians held sacred. The ship was a massive wedge of dark metal and aggressive angles, bristling with structures that could only serve destructive purposes. Scars and burn marks covered its hull like battle wounds, and glowing energy conduits pulsed with barely contained power. "Ancestors preserve us," Quintel whispered. "What kind of beings build such monstrosities?" The vessel was the UEV Righteous Fury, humanity's newest dreadnought-class warship, and it was having a very bad day. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, her weathered face grim as damage reports flooded in from all sections. The experimental jump drive had malfunctioned during their shakedown cruise, throwing them hundreds of light years off course and damaging critical systems throughout the ship. "Admiral," reported Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez from the tactical station, "we've lost primary weapons control. The main cannon array is completely offline, and half our defensive systems are running on backup power." "How long until we can restore full functionality?" Chen asked, her voice carrying the calm authority that had made her famous during the Centauri conflicts. "Engineering estimates 12 hours for weapon systems, assuming we can find a suitable location to make repairs." Chen nodded grimly. The righteous fury was humanity's response to an increasingly dangerous galaxy. While other species seemed content with their small corner of space, humans had encountered pirates, hostile aliens, and worse during their expansion into the void. Every ship in the human defense fleet was built with one principle in mind: overwhelming firepower deployed with surgical precision. "Admiral," called Ensign Park from communications, "I'm detecting another vessel in our vicinity. Small, unknown configuration. They appear to be transmitting on multiple frequencies." "Are they responding to our distress beacon?" "No, ma'am, they seem to be scanning us very thoroughly." On the Zephyrian vessel, the crew was in a state of barely controlled panic. The massive alien ship had appeared suddenly, its very presence seeming to bend space around it through sheer mass and the violent energy it radiated. Their scanners were providing readings that challenged everything they thought they knew about engineering and physics. "The power output from that vessel," Vexhun reported with awe, "could supply our entire homeworld for a century, and their hull composition. Commander, significant portions of their ship appear to be designed specifically for absorbing and redirecting energy weapon impacts." "Energy weapons?" Lithara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature regulation. "You mean they engage in combat with other starships?" "The damage patterns on their hull suggest extensive battle experience, multiple impacts from high-energy projectiles, plasma burns, and—" "Commander, some of these scars appear to be from weapons that could crack a planet's crust." The realization hit the Zephyrian crew like a physical blow. They had encountered not just another species, but what could only be described as a military vessel from a civilization that had weaponized space travel itself. Every aspect of the alien ship spoke of violence, conflict, and the kind of destructive capability that existed only in their species' most terrifying myths. "We should withdraw," suggested Quintel, her skin now a deep purple of pure fear. "If they discover us—" But it was too late. The humans had already noticed them. "Admiral," Ensign Park reported, "the unknown vessel is definitely scanning us. Their technology appears to be some kind of crystalline matrix system. Very sophisticated, but completely different from anything in our databases." "Are they armed?" "Negative, ma'am. In fact, I'm not detecting any weapon signatures at all. No defensive screens, no armor plating, no missile tubes. It's almost like they've never heard of ship-to-ship combat." Chen raised an eyebrow. In 30 years of military service, she had never encountered a starfaring species that didn't arm their vessels. Even the peaceful Tauri Collective maintained defensive capabilities on their trading ships. "Life signs?" "Confirmed. Multiple biological entities, oxygen breathing, low mass compared to human norms. Admiral, they're transmitting what appears to be mathematical sequences, standard first contact protocols." The Admiral considered their situation. The righteous fury was damaged but still formidable, even with weapons offline. The unknown vessel posed no apparent threat, and first contact with a new species was always significant. More importantly, they might have the technological expertise to assist with repairs. "Open a channel," she decided. "Let's see if we can establish communication." On the Zephyrian bridge, chaos erupted as their communications array suddenly blazed with activity. The massive alien vessel was attempting to make contact, broadcasting on frequencies that made their sensitive equipment overload and reset. The power behind the transmission was enormous, like trying to drink from a waterfall. "They're trying to communicate," Vexahun managed to say as he frantically adjusted their receivers to handle the overwhelming signal strength. "The transmission is incredibly powerful. They must have energy resources beyond our comprehension." "Can we respond?" Lithara asked, though every instinct screamed at her to flee. "Possibly. But, Commander, what if we say something that angers them?" "A species that builds vessels like that one might not respond well to perceived insults or misunderstandings." The commander faced an impossible decision. The proper protocol was to establish peaceful contact with any new species they encountered. But every scan of the alien vessel revealed new horrors. Weapon systems that could sterilize worlds, armor that could withstand stellar impacts, and energy reserves that spoke of a civilization built around conflict and destruction. Yet they had made contact first. The mysterious aliens could have destroyed the gentle current without effort, but instead they were attempting communication. Perhaps there was hope for peaceful interaction. "Respond with the standard mathematical greeting," she decided. "But keep our engines ready for immediate departure." The first tentative exchange of mathematical concepts began, each species slowly building a foundation for communication. The Zephyrians used elegant equations that flowed like poetry, while the humans responded with brutal efficiency, mathematical proofs that cut straight to the point with military precision. As the communication protocols gradually established themselves, both species began to realize the magnitude of what was happening. For the Zephyrians, it was first contact with a species so warlike that their civilian vessels carried enough firepower to conquer star systems. For the humans, it was an encounter with beings so pacifistic that they had achieved interstellar travel without ever developing weapons more sophisticated than crystal-shaping tools. Neither species could have imagined that this accidental meeting would reshape both civilizations forever. Admiral Chen watched the translation matrices slowly build meaning from the alien transmissions. The mathematical concepts were beautiful but impractical, like artwork disguised as engineering. These beings clearly thought in terms of harmony and cooperation rather than efficiency and results. It was fascinating and slightly disturbing to meet a species so fundamentally different from humanity's aggressive expansion mindset. "Admiral," Rodriguez called from Tactical, "I've completed the scan analysis. That ship is completely defenseless. No weapons, no shields, hull composition optimized for aesthetic beauty rather than protection. A single torpedo could vaporize it." "Noted," Chen replied curtly. The lieutenant commander meant no malice, but his casual assessment highlighted the vast gulf between human and alien approaches to space travel. She found herself wondering how these beings had survived long enough to develop interstellar capability. On the Zephyrian vessel, similar realizations were occurring with far more terror. Each successful communication exchange revealed more about their new contacts, and every revelation was more frightening than the last. These humans, as they called themselves, came from a world where survival required constant struggle. Their history was filled with wars, their technology focused on destruction, and their very language contained concepts that the Zephyrians had no equivalent for. "Commander," Vexhun reported with growing alarm, "they're asking about our defensive capabilities. They seem confused by our ship's design and keep using terms that translate roughly as vulnerable and unprotected." "Tell them we are explorers," Lithara replied. "Perhaps they will understand that we come in peace." But as the translation progressed, it became clear that these humans understood peace only as a temporary absence of war. Their casual references to battles, conquests, and defensive strategies painted a picture of a galaxy far more dangerous than the Zephyrians had ever imagined. The accidental first contact was about to become something much more significant, A meeting that would force both species to confront fundamental assumptions about the nature of civilization, survival, and what it meant to be alive in an indifferent universe. The communication breakthrough came 6 hours after first contact, when the human translation algorithms finally cracked the Zephyrian linguistic patterns. What followed was a revelation that shook both crews to their core. "Admiral," Ensign Park announced with barely concealed excitement, "we've achieved basic translation capability. The aliens call themselves Zephyrians, and they're requesting permission to assist with our repairs." Admiral Chen blinked in surprise. "They want to help us?" "Yes, ma'am. According to their transmission, they detected our system failures and consider it their duty to aid any beings in distress. They're also expressing considerable concern about our, I quote, excessive military preparations for a research mission." The bridge of the Righteous Fury fell silent. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez was the first to speak. "They think we're researchers?" "Apparently so," Park continued, scanning through the translated messages. "They keep asking about our scientific objectives and wondering why a research vessel needs such heavy armor and weapon systems." Chen felt a cold realization settling in her stomach. These beings had no concept of military vessels because they had never needed them. The Zephyrians weren't just peaceful. They were completely naive about the dangers that lurked in the galaxy's darker corners. "Park, are they aware that hostile species exist?" "Unknown, Admiral. But based on their questions, I don't think they've ever encountered aggressive aliens. They seem to assume all spacefaring civilizations are peaceful explorers like themselves." Meanwhile, on the gentle current, Commander Lithara was experiencing her own moment of horrifying clarity. The translation matrices had finally parsed enough human language to understand what they were dealing with, and the implications were staggering. "Commander," Vexhun reported with trembling voice, "I've analyzed their cultural database transmissions. These humans, they don't explore space for knowledge or beauty. They're expanding because their world wasn't big enough to contain their conflicts." "Conflicts?" Lithara struggled to understand the concept on such a scale. "War, Commander. Planet-wide conflicts involving billions of individuals. Their history contains over 10,000 major wars, and they've only achieved interstellar capability within the last century. They build ships like that one because they expect to fight other species." Navigator Quintel's skin had shifted to a sickly yellow color. "You mean they actively seek out combat?" "Worse," Vexhun continued, reading the cultural data packets. "They've encountered 17 different hostile alien species during their expansion. Pirates, conquerors, religious fanatics, and worse. That vessel carries enough firepower to destroy our entire star system because they regularly face enemies who would do exactly that to them." The Zephyrian crew absorbed this information in stunned silence. Their peaceful exploration of the galaxy had been possible only because they had never ventured into regions where the predator species dwelt. Humanity, it seemed, had been fighting a running battle across half the galaxy just to survive. "Commander," Quintel asked quietly, "what have we done? By contacting them, have we revealed our location to a warrior species?" Before Lithara could answer, another transmission arrived from the human vessel. The translation came through clearly now, and the content made her crystalline heart nearly stop beating. "Zephyrian vessel, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Fleet. We appreciate your offer of assistance and would like to propose a meeting between our species. However, I must warn you that this sector of space is extremely dangerous. Our long-range sensors are detecting at least 3 different hostile fleets within 50 light-years of our current position. I strongly advise you to avoid this region and return to safer space immediately." The bridge erupted in controlled panic. 3 hostile fleets? The Zephyrians had been traveling through what they considered empty space, completely unaware that they were surrounded by predators. Their beautiful crystal ship, with its aesthetic curves and complete lack of defenses, was utterly helpless in such an environment. "Vex Hun," Lithara commanded with forced calm, "scan for these hostile fleets the humans mentioned." I can't detect anything, Commander. Our sensors aren't designed to identify military threats." The reality of their situation crashed down on the Zephyrian crew like a collapsing wave. They were explorers in a galaxy full of wolves, equipped with instruments designed for studying flowers. Only the accidental encounter with a human warship had prevented them from blindly flying into a death trap. Admiral Chen studied the latest reports from her science teams with growing concern. The Zephyrian ship's technology was incredibly advanced in some ways. Their crystalline hull materials seemed to repair themselves automatically, and their energy distribution systems were elegantly efficient. But everything was optimized for peaceful exploration rather than survival in hostile environments. "Chief Engineer Martinez," she called to the engineering station, "what's your assessment of their vessel's defensive capabilities?" "Honestly, Admiral, they have none. Their hull could withstand normal space hazards like micrometeorites or radiation, but any directed energy weapon would cut through it like tissue paper. They don't even have basic emergency protocols for combat situations. And their weapons? They don't have any, ma'am. Not even point defense systems. It's like they've never encountered a situation where violence was necessary." Chen found herself in an unprecedented position. The righteous fury was designed to fight humanity's enemies, not to protect naive aliens who didn't understand the galaxy's dangers. But leaving the Zephyrians to fend for themselves would be tantamount to signing their death warrant. The decision was made easier when her tactical officer spoke up. "Admiral, I'm detecting movement on the edge of our sensor range. 3 vessels, unknown configuration, approaching our position. Based on their energy signatures and approach patterns, they're definitely not friendly. Time to intercept? 4 hours, assuming they maintain current speed." Chen cursed silently. The righteous fury could probably handle 3 unknown hostiles even with damaged weapon systems, but protecting the defenseless Zephyrian ship while engaging multiple enemies would be significantly more challenging. "Open a channel to the alien vessel," she decided. On the gentle current, the latest human transmission brought a new level of terror to the already overwhelmed crew. "Zephyrian vessel, we have confirmed hostile contact approaching this position. 3 unidentified ships displaying aggressive tactical formations. We estimate 4 hours until engagement. Recommend you begin immediate withdrawal to safe distance." Commander Lithara felt her world tilting. Hostile contact. Engagement. The casual way the humans discussed impending violence was almost as frightening as the threat itself. "Commander," Vex Hun reported with visible distress, "our engines need at least 6 hours to complete their charging cycle before we can jump to safe coordinates. We cannot outrun these hostile forces." "Can the humans protect us?" "Their vessel appears heavily damaged from their recent malfunction. I estimate their combat effectiveness at 60% of normal levels." The mathematics of survival were brutally simple. 3 enemy ships against 1 damaged human warship with a completely defenseless alien vessel complicating any tactical response. The odds were not favorable. "Commander," Navigator Quintel spoke up hesitantly, "perhaps we should offer to help them." "Help them do what?" "Fight." The suggestion was so alien to Zephyrian thinking that it took several moments for Lithara to process it. Their species had never engaged in violence beyond the level of individual disagreements. The concept of organized combat between spaceships was like suggesting they learned to breathe vacuum. "We have no weapons," she pointed out. "No, but we have other capabilities. Our scanners are far superior to theirs for detailed analysis. Our computers could provide tactical support, and our engineers might be able to help repair their damaged systems." It was a desperate proposal, but perhaps their only chance. The humans had accidentally stumbled into a situation where they needed to defend both themselves and a species that couldn't defend itself. The Zephyrians could at least try to make themselves useful. Admiral Chen was surprised when the next transmission from the alien vessel offered assistance rather than requesting protection. The Zephyrian commander explained their proposal through the increasingly sophisticated translation matrix, and Chen found herself impressed by their courage in the face of unimaginable terror. "Admiral," Chief Engineer Martinez reported after reviewing the Zephyrian technical specifications, "their repair technology could help us restore weapon systems much faster than our current timeline. Their crystalline matrix manipulation might be exactly what we need to fix the main cannon array. And their sensors? Incredible resolution, ma'am. They could provide targeting data accurate enough to thread a needle at 1,000 kilometers. If we can integrate their systems with ours..." Chen nodded grimly. It was an unusual partnership. Humanity's weapons joined with alien precision, but unusual circumstances called for creative solutions. "Very well. Signal the Zephyrians that we accept their assistance. And Chief, start preparing for close-quarters cooperation with an alien crew." The next 3 hours transformed both vessels in ways neither species could have anticipated. Zephyrian engineers, working through remote manipulation systems and guided by human technical specifications, began the delicate process of repairing humanity's weapons of war. Their crystalline technology proved remarkably compatible with human systems, though the philosophical implications disturbed both crews. For the Zephyrians, it was their first experience with the tools of destruction. Every weapon system they helped repair could devastate worlds, yet they found themselves working with desperate efficiency to restore humanity's killing power. The moral complexity was overwhelming. For the humans, it was humbling to receive help from beings so fundamentally peaceful. The Zephyrian engineers approached weapon repair with the same artistic precision they applied to everything else, transforming necessary violence into something almost beautiful. "Admiral," Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez reported as the final system checks completed, "all weapons are back online. Thanks to Zephyrian assistance, we're actually operating above normal efficiency levels. Their targeting integration has improved our accuracy by 30%. And the hostile vessels? 45 minutes to intercept. They've been identified as Korthak raiders, known for taking slaves and stripping technology from defeated enemies." Chen felt a cold anger building in her chest. The Korthak were exactly the kind of predators that made the galaxy dangerous for species like the Zephyrians. They took pleasure in corrupting peaceful civilizations, turning exploration vessels into slave ships and scholars into broken servants. "Signal the Zephyrian vessel," she ordered. "Tell them to take position behind our main hull and prepare for combat. It's time to show them why humanity builds ships like this one." As the 3 Korthak vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel, their captains expected to find easy prey, perhaps a damaged merchant vessel or lone explorer ripe for capture. Instead, they faced the restored fury of human military engineering, guided by alien precision and motivated by protective instincts that the raiders had never encountered before. The battle that followed would become legendary in both human and Zephyrian records, but for very different reasons. For humanity, it was another successful defense against galactic predators. For the Zephyrians, it was the first glimpse of what survival really meant in an indifferent universe. The accidental SOS had brought together 2 civilizations that couldn't have been more different. Yet in the crucible of imminent combat, they discovered something neither had expected, that sometimes the most unlikely partnerships forge the strongest bonds. The first salvo from the Korthak raiders lit up space with savage fury. 3 massive warships, each bristling with weapons designed for overwhelming smaller vessels, unleashed concentrated fire on what they assumed would be easy prey. The energy beams and plasma torpedoes that could have vaporized a dozen civilian ships struck the Righteous Fury's reinforced hull and were absorbed by armor plating specifically designed for exactly this scenario. Admiral Chen watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction as her ship weathered the initial assault. The Korthak had made their first mistake. They had attacked without proper reconnaissance, assuming they faced another helpless victim. "Damage report," she called crisply. "Minimal impact on hull integrity," Rodriguez responded. "Forward shields holding at 85%. The Zephyrian targeting system is tracking all three hostiles with perfect precision." On the bridge of the Gentle Current, Commander Lithara and her crew watched in horrified fascination as their scanners revealed the brutal mathematics of space combat. The Korthak weapons delivered enough energy to power their homeworld for months, yet the human vessel absorbed the punishment and seemed barely affected. "By the ancestors," whispered Vexhun, "how do they build something that can withstand such violence?" "Necessity," Lithara replied quietly, finally understanding what drove human engineering philosophy. Every plate of armor, every redundant system, every brutal angle of their ship's design existed because they lived in a galaxy that punished the unprepared. The human response was swift and devastating. The Righteous Fury's main cannon array, restored to perfect function by Zephyrian crystal technology, unleashed a concentrated beam of coherent energy that struck the lead Korthak vessel amidships. The alien warship's shields flared and collapsed under the assault, its hull splitting open like overripe fruit. "Direct hit," Rodriguez reported with professional satisfaction. "Enemy Vessel 1 is venting atmosphere and losing power. They're falling back." But the Korthak were experienced raiders who had survived dozens of similar encounters. The two remaining ships split formation, using their superior numbers to attack from multiple angles, while their damaged companion attempted to withdraw for repairs. It was a sound tactical decision that might have worked against most opponents. They had never fought humans before. "Zephyrian vessel," Admiral Chen transmitted. "I need precise targeting data for a coordinated strike. Can your sensors penetrate their electronic countermeasures?" "Affirmative, Admiral," came Commander Lithara's reply, though her voice carried the strain of someone watching their first battle. "We can provide targeting resolution accurate to within centimeters." The integration of Zephyrian sensors with human weapons created something neither species had anticipated, a partnership that combined alien precision with human lethality. The next exchange of fire was brutally one-sided. Human missiles, guided by Zephyrian sensor data, slipped through Korthak defenses and struck vital systems with surgical accuracy. Energy beams found weak points in enemy armor that conventional targeting would never have detected. The second Korthak vessel exploded in a brilliant flash that briefly outshone nearby stars. The third raider, realizing it faced opponents far beyond its ability to defeat, desperately attempted to flee. But the Righteous Fury's engines, enhanced by alien repair techniques, proved more than capable of pursuit. "Should we destroy them?" Rodriguez asked, his finger hovering over the weapons control. Chen considered the question. Military doctrine suggested eliminating all threats, but something about the Zephyrian presence on the bridge made her pause. "Signal them to surrender. If they comply, we'll disable their ship and leave them for the nearest patrol to collect." The Korthak captain, faced with certain destruction, chose survival over pride. His ship's weapons powered down, and within minutes human boarding parties had secured the vessel and its crew. "Admiral," came a transmission from the boarding team leader, "you're going to want to see what we found in their cargo hold." The discovery aboard the Korthak vessel changed everything. Hidden in the raiders' storage compartments were over 200 beings from a dozen different species, refugees, explorers, and merchants who had been captured during previous raids. Many showed signs of brutal treatment, and several species were completely unknown to human records. Commander Lithara joined Admiral Chen aboard the captured ship, her first time seeing the aftermath of violence up close. The crystalline being moved through the cargo hold like a ghost, her skin shifting between colors that had no human equivalent as she processed the horror of organized cruelty. "This is what your species has been fighting," she said quietly, kneeling beside a cage holding 3 small, furry creatures who cowered at their approach. "One example of it," Chen replied grimly. "The Korthak are raiders and slavers, but they're not even the worst we've encountered. There are species out there that would have done far more terrible things to these captives. And to my people, if we had encountered them alone. Probably." The stark honesty of the admission hit Lithara like a physical blow. Her people's beautiful exploration vessel would have been helpless against even a single Korthak raider. The captives in these cages represented what would have happened to her crew, a future of slavery, torture, and eventual death in some alien hell. "How do you bear it?" she asked, "knowing that such evil exists?" Chen studied the aliens' shifting colors, recognizing the signs of deep emotional distress. "By making sure we're strong enough to stop it when we find it. Your people have had the luxury of exploring empty space, but that luxury comes with a price. Someone has to stand between the predators and the innocent." As they worked together to free the captives, both species began to understand the true magnitude of their accidental encounter. The Zephyrians had gained their first glimpse of galactic reality, a universe where beauty and knowledge existed alongside unspeakable cruelty. The humans had met a species that represented everything they fought to protect: innocence, wonder, and the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake. Over the following days, as the rescued captives were treated and prepared for transport to their homeworlds, the partnership between the two ships deepened into something approaching friendship. Zephyrian engineers worked alongside human technicians, sharing knowledge and perspectives that benefited both species. Human Marines learned meditation techniques from alien philosophers, while Zephyrian scholars studied human tactical manuals with fascinated horror. "Admiral," Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez reported during one of their daily briefings, "the Zephyrians have officially requested permission to accompany us back to Earth. They want to establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity." Chen wasn't surprised. The aliens had been profoundly changed by their experience, and she suspected their entire civilization would be similarly affected once they learned what lurked in the galaxy's darker regions. "What's their official reasoning?" "They claim they want to learn from us how to survive in hostile space, how to defend themselves, how to help protect other peaceful species from the kind of predators we just defeated." "And unofficially?" Rodriguez smiled. "Unofficially, I think they're terrified of traveling alone and want human protection until they can figure out how to handle the real galaxy." On the Gentle Current, Commander Lithara faced a different kind of challenge. Her crew had voted unanimously to request extended contact with humanity, but she knew the decision would shake Zephyrian society to its core. Their encounter with the Korthak had shattered fundamental assumptions about the nature of existence itself. "Commander!" Vex Hoon approached her on the observation deck, where she often went to think. "I've completed the cultural analysis reports for transmission to the home fleet. The Council will need to know what we've discovered. That we've been living in a protected bubble while other species fight and die to keep predators at bay? Among other things, yes. But also that there are beings like the humans, warriors who choose to protect rather than conquer, who build terrible weapons in service of noble goals." Lithara considered this. The humans were indeed warriors, but they were also explorers, artists, philosophers, and dreamers. They had developed the capacity for tremendous violence because circumstances forced them to, not because they enjoyed destruction. In many ways, they were what the Zephyrians might have become if their homeworld had been less gentle. "Signal the human vessel," she decided. Tell Admiral Chen that we formally request escort to their homeworld. It's time for our species to learn how to survive in the real galaxy. The journey to Earth took 3 weeks, during which both crews worked together to establish the foundations of what would become humanity's first genuine alliance with an alien species. The Zephyrians shared their advanced sensor technology and crystal engineering techniques, while the humans provided defensive systems and combat training that no peaceful species should need, but every spacefaring civilization required. When the two ships finally entered Earth's solar system, they carried more than just diplomatic messages. They brought the promise of a new era, one where humanity's protective instincts could be channeled towards something greater than mere survival, and where innocent species could explore the galaxy without fear of predators lurking in the void. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Righteous Fury, watching Earth grow larger in the view screen. Beside her, Commander Lithara observed humanity's homeworld with wonder and a new understanding of what had forged the species she now called allies. "It's beautiful," the Zephyrian said softly, her skin shifting to colors that conveyed awe and gratitude. "I can see why you fight so hard to protect it." "We don't just fight to protect Earth," Chen replied. "We fight to protect the idea that beautiful things should be allowed to exist in an ugly universe. Your people represent that idea in its purest form." The accidental SOS that had brought them together was just the beginning. In the years that followed, the Human-Zephyrian alliance would transform both species and reshape galactic politics. Humanity gained access to technologies that revolutionized their scientific understanding, while the Zephyrians learned to defend themselves and others from the galaxy's countless predators. But more importantly, both species discovered that the universe was large enough for warriors and dreamers to coexist, each making the other stronger through their fundamental differences. The humans provided the shield that allowed beauty to flourish, while the Zephyrians provided the beauty that made the shield worth carrying. Together they would build something neither could have achieved alone. A civilization that combined human strength with alien wisdom, creating a beacon of hope in a galaxy that desperately needed both.